Welcome to the ListenIN Football Podcast. My name is Max. I'm joined by Luke. One I really want to discuss with you is Newcastle, because they've been a bit shrewd in this transfer window, haven't they? Considering all what's going on with the purchase of the club, or what looked like the purchase of the club, I think has been disapproved by the FA or the Premier League.
Yeah, well, this was it like a Saudi consortium, isn't it? Where that's been rejected. But strangely enough, it feels like this is the time Mike Ashley's picked to actually back his team. But they've made some class like for Newcastle with some class signings. I think Jeff Hendrick on a free transfer is a very shrewd signing, to be honest. I think
Ryan Fraser.
he was good
So
for Burnley.
it's the two free transfers, isn't it? Oh, is it three? It's like Gillespie from Motherwell, and then like you just said, Hendricks and Ryan Fraser. So to bring in those three players on a free is how what's the reaction like with Newcastle fans? Have you spoken to any?
I haven't, but I imagine it must be like strangely positive. I mean, I know there's no love lost for Mike Ashley, and one transfer window is not going to change anyone's opinion. But given how surprisingly decent they were last season, and Steve Bruce has kind of gave them a nice solid base to build on, the fact that they've strengthened with like players like this, and then you add in the Jamal Lewis and Callum Wilson, these are like class signings for a mid-table Premier League team. Callum Wilson is like an England international.
Absolutely, I think that's a massive steal, and I think a player like Callum Wilson, he's a big miss for a club like Tottenham, who are like this evening. You look on Sky Sports News, scrambling, not scrambling. That's a bit harsh, but like kind of acknowledging like really late on Harry Kane being their only kind of main striker, and they want to strengthen in that area. And I just think 20 million for Callum Wilson, yeah, that's an absolute steal. Like I think the reason they may not have got him is because he knows he's a number one in that area. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think it is down to the fact that if Callum Wilson goes to a Premier League club, which he always was going to, I think, because he's too good for the Championship, he was always going to go to a team who's going to play. And I think Spurs are kind of in a kind of striker limbo where Harry Kane is the main man, and he's going to be the main man, but he misses like 3 months a year because like his ankle just rolls, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But a lot of like most like good strikers won't want to go to Spurs because they're not going to take the chance on Kane getting injured for them to get game time. Like if you look at like strikers like Vincent Janssen, who was class in the Dutch league, went to Spurs, and it's kind of derailed his entire career because he didn't get minutes, and to be fair, when he did get minutes, he didn't look like that good. But I think other strikers will kind of be looking at it thinking like, if I'm willing to play 5 to 10 games off the bench in the Premier League a year, then what's the point of me going there?
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that Callum Wilson will be linking up with anyone? I know when he was at Bournemouth, he linked up with a couple of players like Josh King, I think was one of them. Is there any way of him kind of playing with? Is it Joelington? That's it.
Yeah, well, they could be like
signing.
an old school strike partnership. To fair, kind of like the big man, little man. With Jolinton is also like a tall, imposing presence who's good at hold-up play, and Callum Wilson could be running off him. The interesting thing would be is that at Bournemouth, Wilson and Fraser had like kind of, for them, it was a really talked about partnership where I remember like at Match of the Day doing an entire segment on their partnership because they hadn't played together in a while because of injuries or whatnot, and as soon as they got back in the team together, things actually clicked. So
I
that could be
also
something
heard
they
that
go on.
they didn't actually realise that they were signing for Newcastle until like it was on the news, and then I think one of the messages, you signing for Newcastle? And he was like, maybe, and he was like, oh right, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. So I bet that's pretty weird. I quite like the thought of a Callum Wilson and an Almiron sitting behind him. Two quite low centre of gravity players, not as low as Hazard, but like they do sit quite low to the ground with their speed and their clinical edge.
Yeah, for sure. And you've got also players like Satan Maximin that you can feature into it. They're going to go into the season with like a good number of attacking talent, which is going to be weird for a Steve Bruce team.
And kind of bulking up defensively within that midfield with Hendricks. I think Shelby's out injured at the moment. I'm not too sure where he stands with that, but Jamal Lewis as well. He could have quite easily could have fit into a Tottenham setup.
I think he's a great prospect, Jamal Lewis. Honestly, I think when it comes to young left backs, especially like I know it's not English, but like when it comes to young British left backs, I think he's up there with some of the best. To be honest, I was actually surprised a team higher up the table than Newcastle didn't go for him, especially because I think it looks like according to transfer market, he went for like just under 15 million, which
It's
maybe
crazy
in a
money.
COVID market is a decent price,
Well,
but
let's
you
put that
know.
into perspective. Then last season, Arsenal paid 25 million for Kieran Tierney.
Yeah,
You know,
and I'd
and
say that was a good deal as well,
yeah,
let alone this one.
and there doesn't seem to be like worlds between Jamal Lewis and your Kieran Tierney. You know, I think one of them is obviously clearly further than the other, but I don't think it's going to take long for Jamal Lewis to get to that stage where he's pushing for almost, I'd say, best left back in the league. I know we're a while off that. I'm not comparing him to Robertson, but I wouldn't surprise me if people are talking about him in that sense in 3, 4, 5 years' time. Do you know what I mean?
It could definitely happen, and I think the strange thing is last season, as bad as Norwich were defensively, I'm not sure how many goals they conceded, but I remember they conceded some absolute clangers. I think three out of that back four could like get moves to Premier League teams and go on to be great players. And I'm looking at obviously Jamal Lewis gone to Newcastle, Max Aarons. I'm still
That's
surprised that
imminent,
he
isn't
hasn't
it?
gone.
That
He's
that
got to go
must be
somewhere. Sure,
someone.
he's
Yeah.
too good. And then you've got Ben Godfrey as well, who played centre back. All like young British players that surely have like a place in the Premier League.
And just touching on Jeff Hendricks, how is he going to fit into that Newcastle setup? But we've got the Longstaff brothers, who I think are they both favoured, or is Matty Longstaff favoured?
Yeah, I think the younger of the two didn't get that many minutes. To be honest, I think it's still coming up. I think the inclusion of Jeff Hendrick will just be kind of like a balancer in a way. Is that Jeff Hendrick is a physical. He's got an engine. He can play box to box. And to be fair to him, he's got like a touch of class about him as well. And I think Burnley would have been really disappointed to lose him,
I think
especially
he's
on a free
a Steve
transfer.
Bruce profiled player, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like for any team that wants to play with like that structure, I think Jeff Hendrick is one of those players that just he'll go under the radar. Maybe people won't notice him as much, but I think for a mid-table Premier League team, he's a class addition.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's go to the other end of the table now. I think it'd be silly if we don't talk about the business Chelsea are doing, and I think if reports are accurate, the Ren keeper is looking very close to joining. Can't remember his name. I don't know if you've got on off the top of your head.
I'll check that, but
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing with the Ren keeper is that obviously he comes from Petr Cech's previous club, and apparently it was Petr Cech that recommended him to the Chelsea boards.
So what does that mean for Kepa? If we look at what Kepa's done last season, the scrutiny he's come under, is he going to be going back to Spain? Because I think he's a keeper that suits Spanish football, but definitely not more than Premier League.
It's really like a strange situation where obviously it was a huge outlay on Kepa, like 70 odd million. He hasn't hit the heights. I think in the first season for Sarri, like obviously he had that really controversial moment in the League Cup final where he refused to get subbed off. But other than that, it's all kind of been downhill, especially this one under Lampard. He's had a really poor season. Even Petr Cech himself admitted he had a bad season. But the problem they got now is how much money are they willing to lose on him? Because if they're going to go sell him, then even
They're
if
not going
they
to get their
say
money back, are
that's what I
they?
mean, yeah, especially not in this market where teams don't like in this market, are people gonna be wanting to spend 40-ish mil on a goalkeeper? I don't think that's really going to be the case. Uh,
I think that was a bit of a. I don't want to say a phase a couple of seasons ago, but I think there was definitely kind of they these clubs with their good keepers, good quality keepers, kind of looked towards Liverpool and City and thought, oh, hang on a minute, we've got a talisman here. We're not just because he's a goalkeeper, we're not letting him go for goalkeeper price. And I think that's kind of been found out a little bit.
yeah, well, it's a mental price, isn't it? I mean, I can't say that I watched it. I think it was it Real Sociedad? He was that before. I'm not pretty sure, but
I think he was at Bilbao.
I was at Bilbao
I
because I
don't know.
know
I'm not going to say it. I
when he
can't
came
know
over
very
to
well.
Chelsea, I know that it was meant to be for his ability with his feet, where they wanted the ball playing centre back because
Didn't
Sarri
see
had just
that.
come in. This was just like the reasoning is that Sarri wanted a ball playing goalkeeper supposedly to go with kind of his style. So they brought in Kepa, as I say, it's not gone. It's Edouard Mendy is the keeper from Rennes.
That's it, Mendy. Yeah.
Um, uh, which is strange was he's in his late 20s, I believe. So, I mean, obviously, that's not really say he's 28 years old. Um, uh, so obviously he's a keeper that's kind of gone under the radar. But I mean, he is a lot taller. I think he's
Yeah.
over 6'2". So he's going to be a different prospect to Kepa. I don't know what he's like with his feet, but I think that
Well,
was probably one of
yeah.
the main things for Kepa was that he's a for a goalkeeper, he's like kind of fairly short, and I think maybe that did affect his ability in the Premier League, which is one of the more physical leagues for goalkeepers.
Yeah, I would agree. But also, he's not going to be able to. If they do get him, I highly doubt he'd be playing on Monday night against Brighton. So where does that leave Kepa? Is he going to start? Probably not. Be Caballero, right?
I'm not sure,
So
to be honest.
what a
I
strange
I,
scenario this is.
I think as long as Kepa's here, I think Kepa will probably start. To be honest, it'll be really interesting to see how it develops because obviously Chelsea have had a huge transfer out this season, which you can kind of like put partly down to the fact they didn't have any money to spend in the previous summer transfer window, but obviously it's still like a lot of money.
Well, the fact that
Um,
they can pull players of that caliber and to Chelsea under a fairly young manager,
yeah,
who had a brilliant season. To be fair to Frank Lampard, he maybe not hit the heights in Europe, but I think they drew unlucky with Bayern Munich, didn't they?
yeah. Well,
Um,
essentially, yeah,
yeah, but I do think they have done really well. The director of football there, I can't remember her name. I don't even know if she's a director of football. I don't know what her role
or
is.
she her role is the negotiation of transfers. I'm not
Oh
sure what
right,
her name is, but
never heard
like
of that.
that is her role. But you know, she does. I mean, some of the fees Chelsea get for the players they sell is unbelievable. So
Yeah,
she's obviously got
crazy.
something.
Um, we're not going to go through the whole list of who Chelsea bought. But is there anyone in particular who stands out for you? Maybe Havertz is the obvious one. They're very exciting. We all knew about Werner a few months ago, so maybe that's not something that we wish to talk about. But I mean, you're looking at your Havertz just under 80 million, or is it your Zayek? I can't pronounce his name. Zayek.
Yeah, I think it is
Is
Ziyech.
there anyone in there that you thinking, blimey, that's really gonna bring this team up?
Well, I mean, it probably is the obvious one, but I think Havertz is, I mean, as close to a generational talent as we have in kind of world football at the moment. And I think the fact that they've been able to get him this, I think I thought he was nailed on for like a move to Bayern Munich at some point down the line. So I think the fact that they've been able to get him early is really
What's he gonna do for
pretty meant to be.
Chelsea?
Well, he's just such a complete attacking midfield player, to be honest. Where like Leverkusen for a lot of time last season, they were playing him as kind of a false nine, and he was still getting goals. I think he's probably better playing behind the striker, and I think the dynamic they'll have with Havertz and Werner will kind of be it'll be Havertz playing as the 10 and Werner playing as a 9, but I think they'll be close to each other in more ways of a strike partnership.
It's quite German, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and I think
Classic German setup.
I think Werner last season had the highest expected goals in the entirety of Europe. So the guy knows how to sniff out chances, and I'd expect him to score a lot of goals for this season. I think that maybe the only problem Chelsea are going to have is that you're looking at Thiago Silva, Ziyech, Chilwell, Werner, and Havertz. If they're all going to go into the first team, then that's 5 first team players that they have to integrate, and all at once might be quite hard. You can't just kind of like throw great players together and just hope they kind of ball out. So maybe it'll take a bit of time for them to bed in, but like when they do, like this is the makings of a real special team potentially.